Episode of the Brickyard podcast. We are hyped to be here because we are so close to football. Tomorrow is going to be a week from the first football game, and we have the preseason coming up here. The NFL is coming up faster, and we're continuing to preview every single division in the NFL. And today we're going to be going over the NFC East, or the NFC Least, as people like to call it. We're going to let you know what record we think they're going to have for each team. And then we're also going to draft who we think the best roster, if we combined all four teams, would be. But before we do that, we have some athletes who are getting fired, getting arrested. I know it's not really a shock when you see Gilbert Arenas getting arrested, but Gilbert Arenas getting arrested for running a underground poker ring headed by someone in the Jewish mafia here, and now Gilbert Arenas arrested again.
Yeah, when you told me that he got arrested, my original thought was, okay, Gilbert Arenas gets arrested like every other week, so this isn't really news. But my question for Gilbert Arenas is why? We have places like DraftKings and FanDuel and all these other places that you can gamble, or better yet, you can just go to Vegas with your millions of dollars and gamble legally. But instead, you're doing an underground poker ring. For what reasons? We don't know. Gilbert Arenas, he's collecting all the side quest missions, and ultimately, it could get him in a lot of trouble. Gilbert, why? That's my question to Gilbert.
Yeah, like he gets arrested here because, he's running an underground poker ring at someone's house. But like, my question is, when we have all of these betting apps at the tip of your fingers, when you can pretty much bet on anything now with Kalachi, you can bet on if Trump is going to release the Epstein files, you can bet on the election, you can bet on any event. It's like, are we living in the land of the free or not? Like, oh my God, a bunch of adults went to a mansion and spent money on a card game. Oh my god, that sounds like some pretty spicy stuff. We better shut that down. We don't have more important things like child trafficking to worry about. Actually releasing the Epstein files so we can arrest and hopefully publicly, shame every single person who went to that island. But no, we're focusing on Gilbert Arenas and running an underground poker ring. Like, are we living in the land of the free or not? If you're an adult, I don't see why you can't smoke weed in some states. I don't see why you can't do legal coke so it doesn't have fentanyl in it. And I don't understand why you get arrested for playing cards with money involved. It's so ridiculous that this is even a thing at this point.
Yeah, it reminds me of like when Josh Gordon was getting suspended all these years for smoking weed, and now and now in this case we have gambling, which is basically nationwide at this point, and you have Gilbert Arenas, who is just former athlete, has a bunch of dollars to blow. He has a couple of his buddies go to a mansion, gamble, play some poker, like I'm sure millions of other people do, especially millionaires. And now he's going to go to jail for it potentially. Like, are we talking prison in this case, or is he going to jail for it? Is it like a slap on the wrist? Do we know yet, or is it one of those things where they cuff him and then they leave him on bail? Do you know kind of what it's broken down to?
Yeah, so the legal charges, Arenas faces three federal counts: conspiracy to operate an illegal gambling business, which should not be illegal. It should be, you're an adult, spend your money however you want, who cares? And then B, operating an illegal gambling business. C, making false statements to federal investigators. If convicted, he could face up to 5 years in prison per count through sentencing guideline. Um, and then he made an additional court appearance pleading not guilty and was released on a $50,000 bond. His trial is scheduled for September 23rd in the U.S. District Court in Los Angeles. So he could essentially be facing up to 15 years in prison. If I had to guess, they'd probably give him, it's LA. So they'd probably give him an easier deal, like maybe 5 years and some, what do they call it when you're like at home, like being monitored?
Like house arrest, basically.
House arrest. Yeah, maybe some like house arrest. So I bet if he pleads guilty, he could settle for under 5 years for this, but like for me, this is not a big deal. It's like if a bunch of guys want to get together and play cards, who cares?
Yeah, I would agree. And plus, who's going to be able to have the crazy Gilbert Arenas takes that we're going to see each and every week without him? There's going to be a void there that I don't think the guys like Kendrick Perkins could be able to fill. So Gilbert Arenas, justice for Gilbert is what I'll say.
Yeah, justice for Gilbert. I mean, you better watch your feet in prison. That's all I'm gonna say. Is Gilbert Arenas gonna shoot himself in the foot again? We don't know, but he gets arrested here, and I'm sure Jeff Teague and everyone else are rejoicing because their podcast is about to explode now without Gilbert Arenas there.
Yeah. And then Shannon Sharpe has been fired from ESPN with the lawsuit. So Shannon Sharpe gone from ESPN, gets bought out. What's the details there as far as Shannon Sharpe?
Yeah, so essentially, Shannon Sharpe got scammed by a 22-year-old. He was dating a girl in her young 20s, and then she decided to accuse him of grape, as they want us to say on YouTube. And then they end up reaching a settlement there, but ESPN still decides to fire him. And essentially, how they handled this was they had him go, okay, I'm taking a little bit of a break to focus on Nightcap and this lawsuit, and I'll be back at the beginning of football season. Right as football season is about to ramp up, ESPN decides to fire him here. So my thoughts with this one early on was if they're gonna fire Paul Pierce just for having strippers on an IG live, obviously they're gonna fire Shannon Sharpe, whether it's true or not, for getting accused of grape. So I think this one is like, even though he did settle, it's like it's ESPN and it's still Disney that we're dealing with here, especially for someone like Shannon Sharpe. They probably owed him a ton of money, and I didn't really think he was a great fit anyways on ESPN, but his show Nightcap is still pretty big. But are you surprised that ESPN would fire him?
Not at all. It's just like you mentioned, the House of Mouse. Anything that's gonna damage their reputation and damage the House of Mouse, then it makes sense that they fire him at this case. Plus, I think that they had a bit of buyer's remorse once when they bought him, because ultimately they were trying to pair him with Stephen A. Smith, and the pairing didn't really work the way they thought it would. And I feel like this is not only an opportunity for them to move on from a deal that hasn't really panned out for them so far, but also with the legal troubles that he's going through right now, protecting the image. This isn't surprising at all. And for Shannon Sharpe, he's in a similar case like Pat McAfee, where he doesn't really need ESPN. He has Club Shay Shay and he has a couple of other avenues as well. He's a household name at this point. So neither of them really need each other at this point. So the breakup was inevitable. And then with this lawsuit, it just makes all the sense in the world.
Yeah, and they settled officially out of court. Seems like it was for a little bit over 10 million. So she chased the bag and she went out there and got the bag. And then ESPN formally cut his ties. But this is like what happens. And Paul Pierce has kind of had some base takes lately. He's like, you can tell the guys who were getting it before they were famous and the guys who just didn't get it before they were famous. And once they did, they went crazy. And he kind of alluded to Shannon Sharpe just being one of those guys who, as soon as he got it, he just been a little too wild. But this is just why you have to be careful, especially in modern dating. And this can happen if you're a woman. Like if you just make more money, anyone can take advantage of you. But God, if you're a celebrity out there making that much money, this is why you have to be careful because for some people, this is a business strategy. Like I can go ahead, take advantage of someone, true or not really face any repercussions either way if I'm wrong, and I might get over $10 million out of it and be set for life. Like that's a career path for some people.
Oh, 100%. And there's plenty of examples of that also, unfortunately, in today's times. But she got her money. He's going to go and do his avenues. So I think he'll be fine at the end of the day. I think these lawsuits will shake off, but it is unfortunate. I'd like to see him back on television again or in the Club Shay Shay setting, which I think is more of his vibe these days. But it's unfortunate. I liked him on FS1, and I like him in general. So hopefully he's back somewhere making content.
Yeah, it's a little like to everyone pointed the finger at Skip Bayless immediately on FS1, saying it was his fault. He's the reason why Shannon Sharpe had to leave. But there are also some reports that came out after that said Shannon Sharpe could be an issue. Skip Bayless had to really vouch for him. So it's like maybe if something like that happens in the future, don't jump on someone before you kind of see the whole situation play out.
Hmm. Unfortunately, that's today's culture. It's much more reactionary than it is taking in the information and then better assessing there. It's a lot of quick to jumping to conclusions, unfortunately. Hopefully, that era is leaving us, but there's no promises ultimately. And Skip Bayless, his legacy is there, and I hope that people can go back with revisionist history and give him the proper respect he deserves.
Yeah, for sure. And have you seen
But
like,
speaking,
go ahead.
what
I was gonna say, have you
I was gonna,
seen some of
I
like
was gonna.
Skip Bayless's content where he's like, he's doing live streams with his wife, and he's like, Sabrina Carpenter is no Beyonce. He's like, she's not the pop star, and he's doing like all these random like pop culture debates with his wife.
I mean, I would put Sabrina Carpenter. If we're talking about appearances, I would put Sabrina Carpenter over Beyonce by a mile. But pop star wise, like yeah, Beyonce's probably bigger, but I respect it. I honestly I like when Stephen A. Smith and Skip Bayless and really other analysts take a little bit less of a serious route, and you're talking about shit like Sabrina Carpenter versus Beyonce. I've seen Stephen A. Smith argue what's the best Fortnite map. Like these guys are ultimately arguing about a fantasy sport at the end of the day. Like these are sports that don't I mean, they might give us entertainment, but they're not really that important at the end of the day. So, like whatever they're arguing about isn't that deep. Let's argue about something that genuinely isn't that deep. Like who's a bigger pop star, Sabrina Carpenter or, Beyonce in this case? Like something loose and fun and goofy a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. And something that was supposed to be loose and fun and goosey, like my God, guys, it's just jeans. There was a jeans ad that broke the world, and I know you have good jeans. I've seen them myself, but Sydney Sweeney also has nice jeans, and then it broke the internet. The part remaining of this, I guess, I don't really like saying the word woke or like the far, far just insane people that live on the internet all day and don't go outside or talk to anyone else besides bots on the internet. It was like she said she has good genes and she's blonde and has blue eyes. Must be Hitler, right?
Yeah, which I don't know. For me, if I'm watching a Levi's commercial, or in this case, American Eagle, and I see a beautiful woman and she's talking about having good genes, most rational people are going to say, oh, this must be about good genes. Like they're selling jeans because ultimately the advertisement is for them to sell more. You guessed it, jeans. But people on the internet who are chronically online, doesn't matter what side of the aisle you are. There's people on both sides in this case, but for Sydney Sweeney, beautiful woman. She's successful in a lot of avenues. Businesswoman. Obviously, it makes sense for her to make this commercial. American Eagle is smart to have her, who's like the face of beautiful women these days, the CEO of beautiful women. Some say so. Having her Gene commercial makes sense to me, right? But I guess in today's time, it's not. I don't think this is a majority outcry. I think this is like a 1% outcry that just is louder than the rest of them, personally, because I don't think people watch this commercial and freaked out like what it sounds like on the internet and the articles that are coming out about it.
Yeah, and I think you just have like some of those people like primarily on TikTok, like just making these ridiculous videos, and then they saw one person do it, it became trendy. So I'm like, I can't tell if you're trolling, but I know some people will troll, and there's some people dumb enough to be like, actually, when you look at it, you have to analyze like what they're trying to say, and this is a microaggression, and we're actually regressing. It's like, you mean we're making models hot again? Because that's exactly how it should be. And then Arby's just did like a similar ad again where they have a hot blonde girl, but like aside, like if you can get a celebrity as popular as Sydney Sweeney, she's kind of been like the prototype for just like the American girl, like especially with Euphoria. She was in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and she kind of sexualizes herself in every single movie. And guess what? Sex sells, and like she has good genes, like just because she's hot. And it's a funny pun on genes. Like it's not about eugenics. And if you're in your social media all day, constantly thinking about Hitler, Aryan blood, all of this stuff, like maybe you should do this thing, and it's called putting your phone down, opening up your bedroom door, walking down the stairs, opening up the door to go outside, and then breathing in some fresh air, because I don't think I'll talk to a single human in the street that'll actually have a problem with this. And then also, who buys American Eagles? It's primarily like skinny, hot white women in general. Like that's their demographic.
Yeah, and they geared it perfectly. Like you nailed it. Hot blonde women trying to buy some jeans, and guess what? They're gonna see that ad and go, "I could go for a pair of jeans right now. Let me go to American Eagle and buy some jeans." They reach their demographic. It's just the people who aren't going to buy their jeans anyways are mad about it. So American Eagle's doing just fine. They're going to be fine, and so will Sydney Sweeney, and she'll survive. But the outcry is ridiculous, to be completely honest.
It's like the people outcrying. I just want to say, like, this is why people don't like you. Like, and when you say stuff like this, like, I get if you want to talk about someone in politics, because, like, that actually affects people's lives. But, like, if you want to get political about it, like, how about as a society, we focus on stuff that matters instead of jeans commercials? Why don't we focus on issues going on in the economy? We have homeless people out here, we have people being starved out in a country. Like, there's so many other things that we could be focusing on right now than jeans. It just feels like either this was a campaign by American Eagle just to make it super controversial, but like the stock ran after this as soon as the ad hit. It was up, I believe, 17% after that
Damn,
ad dropped.
good for them. Yeah, that's sick. Yeah, but either way, Sydney Sweeney, she'll be fine, and so will American Eagle. But the outcry is insane to say the least. But she's a quality woman, and ultimately, so is American Eagle. So um, it's just fucking stupid at the end of the day.
I kind of feel bad for her too, because you have the people like on one side, like, oh, she's a Nazi now, and this is like Nazi dog whistling. And then you have the people on the other side who are like, actually, she's mid. She's not even hot. Like, just leave her alone.
Yeah, leave City Sweeney alone. But we have some NFL football to cover. We have the NFC East preview. If you've been watching over the last multiple months, we've been previewing whether it be the AFC East or the North or the West or the South and both sides of the leagues as well. Today we are previewing the NFC East, the Cowboys, the Eagles, the Commanders, and the lowly New York Giants. We're here to break it all down. We'll also be drafting the best roster of the NFC East as well. So make sure not to miss that, as well as continuously going over our what we've been watching as well. Shall we dive right into the previews or shall we start drafting?
Yeah, I would say just so we have an idea of who's in the division there first, why don't we go ahead and draft here? So we'll go ahead and then do three receivers, a tight end, running back, and then for offensive line, no one actually knows offensive linemen, so we're just gonna pick a unit for that. So we can go ahead and then start the draft. If you want to flip a coin in your head just to see who gets the first pick.
Okay. Actually, I'll just flip a coin. Um, okay, heads or tails?
Tails.
All right. Picking the quarterback. We can also go side by side because I feel like we're going to agree on a lot of this. Um, the best quarterback in this division, the Super Bowl winning quarterback, and second in the MVP 2 years ago, Jalen Hurts
Jaden
is the
Daniels.
quarterback. Oh, really? You're
Yeah,
thinking
I
Jaden?
mean, going into next year, like Jalen Hurts is really good, but he had the best offensive line in the league. He also had Saquon Barkley on his team last year, AJ Brown, but like Jaden Daniels went out there with a much more inferior team as a rookie. Like Jalen Hurts did not look that good when he was a rookie. So I think the step forward that he's going to take next year, especially with the roster decisions, like for me personally, I think Jaden Daniels has more upside. Where if I want the safe bet, I'm picking Jalen Hurts. If I want the most potential, who I think can and should be the best quarterback next year, I think it's Jaden Daniels because you put Jalen Hurts on the Commanders. Do they make the playoffs last year? I don't think so.
I think they could. I think they still make the playoffs. Are they 12-5? Do they make the NFC Championship? I'll argue that there, but Jalen Hurts, I think he's the most accomplished at this point. The fact that he's made it to two Super Bowls, he's won a Super Bowl, he's been in the MVP conversation. I think respect wise, I would put Jalen Hurts there. Jaden Daniels is the only other person I would argue because we're not going to put Dak or Russ in this case, but Jalen Hurts is who I would draft, and you would take Jaden Daniels ultimately.
Yeah, and I think it's close, and I think it's a lot closer than most people would think. But I think like I test, Jaden Daniels just pops more. But for the sake of it, we can take Jalen Hurts.
Okay. And I feel like we're going to have a lot of Eagles here because running backs now it's Saquon. For those who might forget, the other competing running backs, the Giants have the great Tyron Tracy. The Cowboys have the great Javonte Williams and Miles Sanders. And the Commanders have the awe-impressive Austin Eckler and Brian Robinson Jr., who, by the way, got shot, in case you didn't know. Um, so between these guys, I think it's pretty obvious the guy who had arguably the best running back season of the last decade, probably pick it Saquon.
Yeah, Saquon might be the best player in the division. So
Yes, 100%. Then we get to receivers. I feel like definitely have to take CeeDee Lamb
yes,
in this
I agree.
case. Definitely have to take AJ Brown.
Scary Terry. I would
Yes.
I
Yeah,
would
scary
take for
Terry.
three receivers. I would say C.D. Lamb, Scary Terry, and AJ Brown.
Yeah. And I think you can also, although he hasn't had a big of a sample size, I would throw in Malik Neighbors as an honorable mention. I think he's definitely got the potential to surpass Scary Terry. Um, but with the situation that he's in, I think he's going to be hampered by it. He is banged up already in training camp. So I do want to give him a shout out, but I would put Scary Terry over him currently. And then maybe Devontae Smith in there in the mix as well. Honorable mention. Potential wise, maybe George Pickens, but George Pickens is fucking nuts apparently.
No, he's not Terry McLaurin right now. So I'd say like AJ Brown and CeeDee Lamb and Terry McLaurin is a fair three receiver trio.
Agreed. Then we get to tight ends. For those who might forget, we have Zach Ertz for the Commanders, Jake Ferguson for the Cowboys. Giants have Theo Johnson,
We'll just say
and the
Theo Vaughn.
Eagles have and the Eagles have Dallas Goddard.
Yeah, I would take Dallas Goddard.
Yeah, he's the youngest. He's most accomplished. Zach Ertz still has a little bit left in the tank, but if this was 5 years ago, I'd pick Zach Ertz. I'll take Dallas Goddard in this case.
Right?
And then offensive line is obvious.
The
Best
Eagles.
offensive line in the league, it's the Eagles, obviously. All right. Then we get to edge rushers. Um, I think in my case, I would take Jalen Carter um, because he's exceptional. Um, other edge rushers, Micah Parsons in this
Yeah.
case. Um, and then from there, I think you can pretty much pick whoever you want there. I mean, Jordan Davis is great. He's a good nose tackle. Dexter Lawrence for the Giants is in consideration there. Um, and then maybe Deron Payne for the Commanders. Um, I would probably put Jordan Davis in this case.
Yeah, for sure. And I think like honestly, defensively, like the Giants, like for all their flaws, might have the best defense in the division, like top to bottom when you look at it, especially when you have like Brian Burns, Kayvon Thibodeau there, you have Bobby Okereke.
Hmm.
I think
Kayvon,
they
yeah.
added an elite safety as well.
Yeah, they got Javon Holland. They got Deontay Banks. I think linebacker core, it's the Giants because with Brian Burns, Bobby Okereke, Micah McFadden, and then Kayvon Thibodeau, that's a great linebacking core. All of these guys are killers. It's just unfortunate that their offense is going to score 10 points this year. Um, you can also throw in like Zach Bond for the Eagles. He's been great. We have Nolan Smith. Um, Cowboys don't really have great linebackers in this case. Frankie Louvu for the Commanders, another person we can shout out there who was excellent for
Former
them.
Panther.
Yeah, Bobby Wagner still got a little bit left in the tank. Played well. I believe he was a Pro Bowler last year, so good linebacking. But I would take the Giants personally, linebacking core. And then secondary, looking at corners, um, Cowboys have Deron Bland and Trayvon Diggs, who are they're good in their own right. Um, Eagles' hole has been secondary historically. They don't have great corners currently. That's probably their biggest hole. Um, Commanders have Marshawn Lattimore, who I don't think he's the same player he once was, but he's definitely at his peak was a top corner in the league. Corners, who would you take as far as for picking from each division or each team? Who would we take in this case?
Yeah, I would probably take Deron Bland and Marshawn Lattimore as a duo
Hmm.
because like Trayvon Diggs just hasn't been healthy, and he really thrived on that Dan Quinn defense that one year where he's just jumping routes, getting to it early. Where I haven't seen him play well after that. He's kind of just been banged up.
I think he's very much a boomer bust type of corner, and that benefits him when he's facing a good wide receiver. But he's facing a great wide receiver like a Tyreek Hill or a Justin Jefferson. I think that's when you see him get burned. Um, and then safeties, we have like Malik Hooker for the Cowboys. We have Javon Holland for the Giants. We also have Reed Blankenship as well for the Eagles as well. We have Cooper DeJean as well, who's been exceptional for them. Safeties wise, um, I think in this case I'd take Cooper DeJean, and then I like Javon Holland a lot, um, and that's kind of where I would put him as far as secondary wise.
Yeah, I would say that's fair.
And then most importantly, kickers. I mean, we got to pick kickers and punters, of course. Um, Commanders have Matt Gay, so comically, obviously, we're going to pick him. Um, Giants have Graham Gano, who I don't know why he's still on that team. Jake Elliott for the Eagles, and then Cowboys have Brandon Aubrey. He's probably the best kicker in the league. He's probably the new Justin Tucker, and this guy is not a grapist, so that's another plus. So Brandon Aubrey for the win, former soccer player.
Yeah, Brandon Aubrey, definitely shout out to Matt Gay. But yeah, it helps when your kicker isn't a grapist there. Or, Justin Tucker was also a former opera singer. So that, like, thing of those two things together is very disturbing to me.
I would agree, but it's funny because if we're looking at the best of this division, right? We have our quarterback. We picked Jalen Hurts, and that's a coin toss between Janet Daniels. But then we have Saquon Barkley. We also selected AJ Brown. Honorable mention Devontae Smith, Dallas Goddard, best offensive line. We named Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis as edge rushers. To note, Cooper DeJean. I think it's safe to say the Eagles have the best record and best roster in this division and maybe the entire NFL.
And then would you take Nick Sirianni as your coach, or are you taking Dan Quinn, or maybe going out there feeling frisky and thinking that Brian Dayball, who the Giants thought was the next Bill Belichick, has just not gotten a fair shake? And if he was on the Eagles or the Commanders or the Cowboys, it'd be a whole different story.
Well, I'm not taking Brian Schottenheimer because I've seen what he's done with the Seahawks offense. Brian Dayball, he had one good season, one honestly average season. He went 9-7-1. I'm not taking him. I would take Nick Sirianni. I know a lot of people had their pitchforks out for him before this season, um, but he's proven the fact that he's made two Super Bowls, the fact that he's been able to develop Jalen Hurts, hire coordinators that then move on to greater roles. Nick Sirianni's the best coach in this division. Dan Quinn deserves a shout too, though.
Yeah, and he demolished the Chiefs too. Andy
He
Reid's
did.
former team in a rematch in the Super Bowl, no less.
Yeah. So Nick Sirianni, I think he should be up there for top five head coaches in the league. I feel like even after the Super Bowl, they haven't really given him his respect. I feel like if they start off slow or maybe they have a Super Bowl slump, the pitchforks will be out for him again. I don't know if that's the Philly people who are like that or if it's just the national media. We're going to probably lead the national media in this case, but I think he deserves to be a top 5 head coach in the NFL.
It's so weird. Like the national media is harder on Philadelphia coaches because they're like, oh, Philadelphia isn't happy. So they're probably going to be out because Philadelphia pulls out the knives and the pitchforks a lot earlier than other teams. And it's like, I don't want to hear anything about Nick Sirianni if no one is talking about Mike McDaniel failing next year. Like, stop. Unless you're going to talk about Mike McDaniel being average or below average in Miami, like, leave Nick Sirianni alone. Are you going to talk about Zach Taylor's slow starts here? Like, no? Okay.
Yeah, you got to be rational. But we've talked about the best of the NFC East, but let's say who's going to be the best team to come out of this division. Keep in mind, there has not been a repeat winner since 2002. A lot has changed since 2002. Is this the year that we see it continue on? The Eagles end up winning back to back divisions for the first time in over 20 years? Or will there be a new team that dons the cape of the best in the NFC East?
Yeah, and we shall see. So, why don't we start out with a team that I know you love, has a player on this team, has a very special place in your heart. Let's start dangerous and start with the New York Giants here. Um, Overall, heading into the 2025-2026 NFL seasons, what are your thoughts on the New York Giants or East Rutherford Jersey Giants?
My thoughts on the Giants are Russell Wilson is a band aid for a failing quarterback room that they have. Jameis is exciting, but he's not going to win you many games. And Jackson Dart is a rookie. Their offense is pretty bad all across the board. They don't have a good running game. Outside of Malik Neighbors, they don't have good receivers. They don't have a good tight end. They don't have a good offensive line. Their defense is ultimately going to be the only saving grace of this team. I think this is easily going to be the last year for Brian Daboll, and I don't think he finishes the season. I think he gets fired probably somewhere in the middle of the season. I'm going to guess like maybe week 12. Um, I don't have high expectations for the Giants, but I don't think they're going to suck enough to get that wonderful number one overall pick. So let's get into the breakdown here for the New York Giants.
Yeah, so we'll head into their year. And to start out, we have a quote from Jameis Winston saying, I am not an outcome based quarterback when being asked about his turnover problem. So tells you everything you need to know about the Giants and where they're at right now. So they start out September 7th at 1 o'clock Eastern time. And they're in Washington, who may or may not have a stadium next year, depending on if they change their name, but they're in Washington.
Yes. So historically, I'm looking up the Giants' record against the Commanders because I looked it up earlier. They historically split with them over the last 5 years. So I do think that this is the one team that they will split with. Because if you look at the records against the other teams in this division, it is not pretty. So week one, maybe they're off guard, high expectations. I'm going to pick the Giants to start off 1-0 and beat the Commanders in week one.
All right, I like it. Definitely a good week for upsets. Get that out of the way here. Maybe the Commanders are a little bit rusty here. And then they go to Dallas, who's kind of beat the hell out of them over the past few years.
Yeah, so you want to hear an interesting stat that I found? Can you guess their record against the Cowboys over the last 8 years?
Over the last 8 years, I feel like I can only remember them winning one game.
Well, that is correct. The last time they beat the Cowboys was against Andy Dalton in 2017. And outside before that, they are 1-15 in the last 8 years. If we go out the last 10 years, they are 4-16 over
Was
the
that
last 20 games.
the only game that year Daniel Jones threw over 200 yards?
Yes, actually, it was, believe it or not. That
Wait,
was the
really?
only game. 229 yards. Yes, you're right. You nailed it. 100%. The only game, Wayne Gallman, the main rusher for the Giants that year, and the main rusher for the Cowboys. You guessed it, Andy Dalton in that game. So safe to say the Giants don't beat the Cowboys, and I think it's safe to say that they will not be sweeping them or getting a win against them this year. So I'm going to have them losing to the Cowboys.
All right, so they lose to the Cowboys and then they go back home and host the Chiefs after a 2-game road trip.
Yes, and the defending AFC champion, especially on prime time. Yeah, I'm going to pick the Chiefs.
Yeah, and no, I don't think Mahomes is gonna allow himself to lose to Russell Wilson at this point.
No,
That's just an embarrassment if you do.
he has way too much pride, and I don't blame him either.
And this is Sunday night football too.
Yeah, week 3, Chiefs are getting back into the swing of things. Rashid Rice is going to be back. Isaiah Pacheco is going to be back. A team that just got embarrassed in the Super Bowl, pissed off Patrick Mahomes, not in the 99 Madden Club. Patrick Mahomes is going to be pissed off next year. So they're
Yeah,
going to come with the vengeance.
and then they finish out their 2-game homestand to finish out September versus your kind of stepchild, the Chargers.
Yeah, and you can make all your jokes you want about the Chargers, but the Giants are a team without bad you gotta remember how bad Russ is at this point. Like, sure, he's not terrible, and he has his moments where you see old Russ, but he is not the guy. His offense is always very painful. You saw it the last year in Seattle. You definitely saw it his Denver years. And last year in Pittsburgh, you saw the same. I just think Brian Dayball is not the brains. Very difficult for him to have a fluid offense these days. Take the Chargers to win this game.
Yeah, Russell Wilson at this point in his career is Jesus is King Kanye on loop. But
Yeah.
thankfully, they get to go to New Orleans and face the Saints, who are gunning for Arch Manning.
And it's funny because both of them should be gunning for Arch Manning ultimately. And this is a game that I think they win. Do I think it's going to be a great game? No. I'm expecting like 10-7 is probably the game that we're going to see. A turd bowl. Everyone's complaining about how, we haven't had football in the last 7 months. By the time we get to this game in week 5, we're going to wish that this game didn't exist because it'll be a 1 o'clock game. And you already know Scott Hansen's going to watch this game the most. Maybe they start to incorporate Cam Scatabo by then. We shall see. But they beat the Saints just narrowly. 10-7 is my prediction.
Well, thankfully, it's tucked away in that 1 o'clock slate. And then Thursday night football, October 9th, they host the Philadelphia Eagles.
Yes, and they are 3-7 in the last 10 games over the Eagles. They have the same record against the Eagles over the last 10 years as the Cowboys. And last year they got swept. They lost 28-3 and 20-13 the last game of the season. So safe to say, over the last 7 games, they are 1-6. I don't think they win any of these games against the Eagles. They fall to them, and this is a Thursday night game. I'll take Jalen Hurts to take care of business.
And then off of a mini bye, probably one of 3 4 o'clock games, we have the Giants heading to Denver to face the Broncos at 4:05 Eastern time.
Yeah, and it's looking bad. I mean, the Broncos I think are going to be better than people think this year. Their defense has been really solid in the Sean Payton era, and I wasn't a believer in Bo Nix at first, but I do believe in him now. I think he'll be a good game managing quarterback, and he's mobile. That offense is better than this offense, and their defense is probably better than this defense. So Broncos take care of business. I think they cruise to an easy win
Yeah, and I think for like the Broncos, like I think Bo Nix is like a nice white Dak Prescott, and I think that's a fair comp for him at this point in his career.
until he proves otherwise.
And then after the Broncos, they face the Eagles again in Philadelphia. That's
Yeah,
weird.
and I think we'll see an Eagles team have a little bit of a Super Bowl hangover, but not enough for them to lose to the Giants at this point. This is in Philly, and I just don't see a way that the Giants win that game. So I'm going to take them to lose this game as well.
All right. And then they get to host the San Francisco 49ers in East Rutherford, New Jersey at 1 o'clock. Will the 49ers have a team then? Is the question.
As long as they have Brock Purdy, I think they'll be fine. Um, Interesting to see where the Giants will be this year, or I mean the 49ers, because you move on from um, Debo Samuel. Now you have Jawan Jennings taking on that next role. I still think a banged up San Francisco 49ers team is better than the Giants. So I'm going to take the 49ers to beat them.
All right, so 49ers beat them, not looking good. Now they are 2-7, and then they go to Chicago to hide your boyfriends. They're playing Caleb Williams and the Bears.
And there's nothing scarier than facing the Femboy Bears. I mean, good Lord. Um, at Soldier Field, there's a lot of questions here. This is a winnable game for them. I think the Bears are getting a little overhyped with Ben Johnson. We don't know for sure how he'll be as a head coach. That being said, I think the Bears have a lot more talent on offense. You have a better brain, I think, calling plays. And their defense played very nicely at the end of the season last year. So I am still going to pick the Bears. This is a game that can be a win on their schedule, but I'm going to take them to lose this game. And this is when Brian Dayball firing calls begin to chant.
All right, now they're 2-8, and it doesn't get easier here because they're in a brutal stretch, and they face the Packers at home at 1 o'clock.
And you already know, I believe in a thing called love. Romeo, Romeo, do art thou Romeo Dobbs? They have the golden goose now, Matthew Golden, their first round wide receiver. I take the Packers. I believe in the Packers this year. They were banged up last year. I think this year they are coming for that division. So I take the Packers in this one.
All right, and then they go to Detroit. Um, looks like on thanks is November 23rd Thanksgiving.
This is a Sunday
Uh,
game.
it's a Sunday game, yeah. So they go to Detroit on Sunday at 1 o'clock, and Detroit has been really good at home.
Yeah, I don't believe that they beat the Lions. This is actually the game. I think the Lions, this is a team, just like last year, they have something to prove. They're not satisfied with what happened last year. They're going to come out hungry. And it sounds like everything in training camp, their head coaches, their coordinators, everybody in synchrony. This is a game where I think the Lions just absolutely curb stomp them. And this is the game that I think Brian Dayball is holding a clipboard, a cardboard box outside of MetLife Stadium. He is unemployed. You might see him at the local Burger King stealing burgers behind the counter as he is now a cashier at Burger King. Unfortunately, Brian Dayball, you are no longer a head coach in the NFL.
Brian Daboll makes his way up to the 33rd floor. We all know what happens next. And then it doesn't get easier because they go to New England in December.
Yes. Now, this is where history comes involved. Now, I know this is not the same Patriots team, nor is this the same Giants team. However, in my prediction, Brian Dayball has been fired. And if we look at history, we know that when you fire a head coach the following week, typically the team comes out roaring. With there's just I think with the Giants and the Patriots, there's something in the heads of the Patriots. They haven't played very well against the Giants over the last decade since the Super Bowls. There is something there. I'm actually going to pick the Giants to win this game on Monday Night Football, but I think this is where we're going to see maybe some Jameis magic and especially some Cam Scatterbo magic. I think this is when we see the
Jackson
Cam
Dart,
Scatterbo
maybe.
show. Maybe the Dart show. We don't know. But I think we potentially see either Jameis or Cam Scatterbo have a big game, winner game, snow on the ground. I'll take the Giants to win this game.
All right, and then the Washington Commanders, if that is in fact their name, goes to East Rutherford, New Jersey the following week at 1 o'clock.
And I said they were going to split, so I'm going to stay true to that. They won in week one. The Commanders have had this circled on their calendar. Let's beat up on the 3-10 Giants. So I pick them to fall to the Commanders. Plus, I think the Commanders are going to enter the playoffs hot, just like they did last year. So give me the Commanders.
All right, and then another game at home, but we have the Vikings coming to town. That maybe is an interesting game, maybe not.
Could be an interesting game. Depends on how bad JJ McCarthy is. But you have Justin Jefferson, you have Jordan Addison, Aaron Jones, TJ Hawkinson. And that defense isn't a slouch either. Brian Flores has done a great job with that unit. This is a game that maybe is winnable, but I'm going to take the Vikings in this game.
Yeah, I agree. The Vikings defense is definitely underrated. And, JJ McCarthy just has to live up to Sam Darnold. So I don't think those are huge shoes to fill at this point. And then we move on to the following week. This is a TBD game for some reason, but it's the Giants and Raiders. I don't know why you needed to be determined the Giants and the Raiders next year.
Yeah, I don't know what they think is going to happen there. Maybe they believe in the Raiders more than we do, but the Raiders, I don't think are going to be a great team. I think they're definitely being overhyped. But Geno Smith, you have Ashton Genty, who could be Offensive Rookie of the Year. You have Brock Bowers. You have some decent receivers, and Pete Carroll. I would take over whoever is the head coach of the Giants at this point. We don't even know who's. Maybe it's Jameis Winston for all we know. Um,
Could be Russ.
could be dangerous. Anything's possible. So
Sierra.
yeah, maybe it's Sierra. We don't know. But I will take the Raiders in this game.
All right, and then the Raiders win this one. They drop to 3-13, and then the Jerry Seinfeld led Giants go to, or they're at home and they face the Cowboys in January. Which the Cowboys could be playing for a wild card spot, but
Yeah, they could be playing for a wild card spot. This is a game that I think it doesn't really matter because you're fucking 3-13. Can the Cowboys do something maniacal? Let the Giants win this game so they don't get the number one overall pick. Ultimately, if they're vying for a playoff spot, I still take the Cowboys to win this game, especially because they own them historically. So even with them having the record they do, I still don't think they get the number one overall pick, as I think the Saints will rightfully claim that next year. If you look at our showing, I think we had them going 1-16. So still the Saints as the number one overall pick, but the Giants, very disappointing season.
that's a hard schedule too, right? Because you have to play the AFC West and then you play the NFC North, two of the best divisions in the NFL at this point. And then also, your own division might be one of the best divisions in the NFL. Because, like, with Dak having two good receivers at this point, hopefully his running back game, but it seems like you found at least some stability here in the running back room. We'll see coaching wise how much that will hurt them, but the Eagles defense is still young and hungry, and then the Commanders are hungry as well. Like, this is just a really hard division this year, and then you also play two of the toughest divisions in the NFL, and then you have two potential teams that could go to the Super Bowl in the NFC North and the AFC West with the Broncos. If, like, Josh Allen, God forbid, or Mahomes got hurt, I could definitely see the Broncos getting there, especially with what they did in the offseason. Then the Chiefs, obviously, the Chargers are no slouch. The Vikings, Bears, Lions, Packers are all tough. Like, brutal schedule for the NFC East this year.
I think this might be the most brutal schedule I've previewed so far, or we've previewed, because the stretch where they face it goes the Eagles, the Broncos, the Eagles, the Niners, the Bears, the Packers, the Lions, the Patriots, the Commanders, all in a row. That's that could be you might not get a single win in there at that point. And the Patriots also, I think, are going to be improved. There's been good showings of Drake May in training camp so far. So I definitely think they can beat the Saints. They could beat the Vikings or Raiders. Maybe they beat the Patriots, but I don't see a lot of wins here. I think 3 wins is completely fair. Am I crazy?
Yeah, it's like I don't think they're gonna win 3 games, but can I argue with it? No. And I think their defense is gonna be really good. But again, the thing that's gonna derail a really good defense is gonna be a terrible offense. So it's gonna be, can Russ turn back the clock just enough with Neighbors where you can steal some wins, maybe have some gritty games, whether it's with the Broncos. I could honestly see them upsetting the Chiefs early, but am I gonna pick that? Absolutely not, unless I just have some money to bet, and the odds are ridiculous. Where it was like a situation to, like, spend 100 to make 10 grand.
Yeah, and I think like whatever game that we pick that they win, they could also lose, right? I think I picked them to beat the Commanders, the Patriots, and the Saints. Maybe they don't win those games directly. Maybe they upset like a Niners or a Bears or whatever. But I think 3 wins with how brutal this schedule is, like I just don't see many wins there. You have Jameis Winston who is turnover prone. You have Russ who goes through stretches where everything is hard on offense. You have a rookie quarterback at Jackson Dart, and then unfortunately, Tommy DeVito is probably not going to be on the team by the end of the training camp because he's probably going to be the guy who gets cut, unfortunately. So you have a brutal schedule. You have a terrible quarterback room. Your offense, outside of Malik Neighbors, is not impressive. You don't have a good offensive line. And then your defense, like, it's going to be good the first half of the season. And then it's probably going to implode because they just know that the season's over at that point. So, Giants, it's nothing personal, but I just don't see how you can win more than 4 games.
Yeah, so definitely not personal with the Giants, but your offense, I just don't believe in, especially your coach. It feels like he lost the locker room last year, and then we're heading into a new year. I just don't know. But let's head down to Texas, and we're gonna be previewing the Cowboys next. Cowboys, they have a one-two punch legitimately now with CeeDee Lamb, and they also have George Pickens, who they brought in, and now they just got to really figure out Micah Parsons' contract right now. He's not happy that he hasn't gotten paid, but I feel like the Cowboys' MO is to not pay people until the last minute just because Jerry Jones likes headlines and drama.
Yeah, I would agree. So for me, the way I look at the Cowboys this year, I think that I don't think they're as good as the Commanders or the Eagles, who we'll preview later, but they have a good enough offense and a good enough defense that I think they'll be in the mix for the wild card when it's all said and done. And you have Dak returning plus good receivers, so let's see how it shakes out for them. They start the season in Thursday night football against the Eagles. Um, and this is a Thursday night game. Let me see if this is overseas. It is in Philadelphia, but they start off against the Eagles.
They start off against the Eagles, and I will take the Cowboys to win that. They typically play the Philadelphia Eagles tough, and they have split in the past. And the Cowboys, like, I feel like sometimes they're a team that should be worse than they are, but exceeds expectations sometimes. And they're definitely September Warriors. And they're going to be like, yeah, we came out there, beat the Philadelphia Eagles week 1. Let's go. And then November hits, and like, oh, yeah.
Oh yeah,
That's
it's
why
the
no one
Cowboys.
picked them to win. But I will
Yeah.
take them to win.
All right. And then week two, they face Russell Wilson, Dangerous New York Giants.
Yeah, and then you picked the Giants to lose that game and the Cowboys to win. So I will also go with Dallas to win that game.
All right. And then they take it up to Soldier Field to take on Caleb Williams and the Femboy Bears.
And I will take the Cowboys to win that game as well. I think they have early on the season a matchup advantage there, and can expose a little bit with what the Bears do. Bears may still be figuring out a little bit. So give me the Cowboys.
All right. So they are officially September Warriors. They are 3-0. They are on pace to go 17-0. But then Jordan, I believe in a thing called love. He goes to Jerry World to take on the Cowboys and Packers.
Yeah, and the Cowboys playing at home, oddly enough, might as well be a road game sometimes because they've played worse in Jerry World historically over the past couple seasons than they have on the road. And then also the Packers in Jerry World, like the Packers historically over the past few seasons have dominated the Cowboys. So give me potential Jordan, I believe in a thing called love MVP next year to beat the Cowboys.
All right. I like it. Yeah, the Packers, I feel like, are just one of those teams. I mentioned the Giants and Patriots, but I think Packers and Cowboys, the Packers are in the minds of Cowboys fans everywhere. Whether it's Aaron Rodgers, Brett Favre, Jordan Love, it's they live rent free there.
The
But
catch that wasn't a catch. They still won't let it go.
yeah, that's yeah. I mean, technically it's a catch nowadays, but yeah, that insane game. But luckily for Jerry Jones and the Cowboys, they go to the church that Aaron Glenn built. They go to MetLife Stadium and they take on the New York Jesus Jets.
Wow. I mean, where do we begin? No Justin Fields. Justin Fields carted off during practice. They go the East Rutherford Jets. I don't know if Garrett Wilson's contract can save him or the Jets at this point. But the Dallas is pretty religious as well. So give me the Cowboys in this one.
All right, so they are cruising. They are now
4-1.
4-1, and then they go to Carolina to take on the Carolina Panthers. Bryce Young, they got a new receiver there as well. Some hope there, but they take on the Panthers in Carolina.
Yeah, and I think this is a toss-up game overall, but I will respect the Cowboys. They have gotten better this year, especially they have a legitimate 1-2 punch-out receiver. The Panthers still need to figure out defensively, so give me the Cowboys in this one.
All right, so they are cruising. They are 5-1. Their schedule starts to get a little bit tougher. They take on the Commanders in Week 7 at 4 o'clock.
Where is it?
This is in Jerry World.
In Jerry World and at home. I don't love that, especially going up against the newly revamped Commanders here. So give me the Commanders to take the win in this one.
All right, and then they go to the Mile High City, take on the Broncos in Week 8.
Yeah, and Denver, I think, is going to be really good next year, especially defensively. So give me the Broncos in this one. Tough place to play.
Okay, and then Week 9 they are going for dirt cheap. Actually, I'm just looking at the tickets here. They are hoisting the Arizona Cardinals.
They're hosting the Arizona Cardinals. Does Kyler Murray have some magic? Does he have some heart? I don't know in this one, but I feel like there's going to be a lot of losses on the horizon for the Cowboys in the next few weeks. So give me the Cowboys in this one.
Okay, all right. Then the bye week comes. They take Week 10 off, rest up. Maybe by then they sign Micah Parsons. We don't know. And then another Monday Night Football game. They are going to Vegas to take on the Raiders.
And I think they should win that game.
Okay. And then now we're reaching the gauntlet. Week 12 on. Um, week 12 they face the Eagles in Jerry World.
In Jerry World, yeah, I'll take the Eagles to win that one.
All right, so they split with the Eagles. And then Thursday night football on Thanksgiving against the Chiefs in Jerry World.
I don't need to pick that, right?
Nope. I think we could just make our assumptions there.
All right.
And then another Thursday night game. So yet another primetime game. Somewhat of a short week, but they face the Lions in Detroit following Thanksgiving.
The Lions are still mad that they get robbed last time and should have been the number one seed. So I think the Lions are coming out, and that people are like, oh, the Lions are going to fall off this year. Don't forget their entire defense got hurt, including Aiden Hutchinson. Then they just brought in Christian Wilkins to go along with Ali McNeil, another draft where this team has historically been good at drafting over the past few years in the Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell era. So no, I don't want to hear this Lions falling off BS. Sure, will they start slow? Maybe, probably. But also, you had David Montgomery get hurt. You had some offensive linemen go down. You still have Jameer Gibbs, and you still have some of the best receivers in the league. So give me the Lions in this one.
I love it.
Now they're
So
7-6.
so they are 7-6. They're a bit on a skid. Do they finish strong? We'll see. Sunday night football, week 15 against JJ McCarthy and Jay Jetta in Jerry World.
I feel like the Cowboys should win that one, but just my soul is telling me that the Vikings are going to come out on top in that game.
All right.
So I'll take the Vikings.
So they struggle out. They start off strong. Now they are what, 7-7 at this point?
Yep, they started 7-3, and now they're 7-7.
That sounds about right. And then they go in week 16, they host the Chargers.
They host the Chargers, and it's in Jerry World. So, coaching matchup, mismatch, quarterback mismatch. You kind of have the Dak Prescott with more talent and a stronger arm. So, give me the Chargers in that one. And
All
I'm not a
right.
Chargers fan or lover. You all know that.
It is well documented at this point. And then week 17, they go to Washington to take on the Commanders.
In I think they will split with Washington, so give me the Cowboys in that one.
All right. And then week 18, this is it. Will they be above 500? They take on the Giants, potentially for a wild card spot. At this point, maybe it's Jackson Dart, maybe it's Jameis. Who knows? Who cares at this point for the Giants because they are well out of contention.
Yeah, and I think they win that one and they go 9-8, which is exactly where I think the Cowboys should be. And especially like, did they add talent? Yes, but did they also add a horrible head coach? Absolutely. And this is a team that's also struggled with injuries. We don't really take that into account, but it kind of just naturally weaves its way in. But you kind of have a skid there. Then you finish the season strong, get above 500, and then you can be a sneaky team going into the playoffs. But I think 9-8 is fair for Dallas.
I think 9-8 is perfect. I think they are going to be right around that 9-8. Maybe they get to 10-7. Maybe they're 8-9. But ultimately, I think you predicted it well in the far as that they start off hot because their first stretch of games is pretty easy, and then once when it starts to get to the Eagles and Chiefs and Lions and Vikings and Charge, like that's when it gets really tough, and that's when I think that they'll start to lose some games. But 9-8, I think, is fitting for the Cowboys.
Yeah, 9-8 is fitting. So let us know what you thought about that record. We'll be doing, the Giants, the Eagles, and we have the Commanders up next. That's kind of the team that everyone is jumping on the bandwagon there. Do you think for the Commanders heading into the 2025-26 season that this is a little bit too soon and we could potentially see Jane Daniels go through some of the struggles that CJ Stroud did next year? Or do you think Dan Quinn is legitimate with this team and they're actually going to take that next step forward?
What gives me a lot of hope is the fact that Cliff Kingsbury had offers and he decided not to. And with the Lions, if you look a couple years back with Ben Johnson, believing in the system that they've built in the Commanders system. Plus, I think Jaden Daniels is not CJ Stroud. I think he's better. I think he could very well, if he's not already a top five quarterback, I think he submits himself to that this year. They've made nice additions, right? They have Debo Samuel on their team now. Will they pay Terry McLaurin? I think they eventually will. And they've also upgraded their offensive line. So their offensive line should be better. They have more talent, more firepower, and their defense has enough players to cause some trouble in that Dan Quinn scheme. So I think that they are in a position where they might not have the same record as last year, but I think that they will definitely make the playoffs.
Yeah, and you could see them like not having the same record, but inevitably being better as a team
Yeah.
overall. Like they may not be 12-5, but even if they're 10-7, they could be a better playoff contender than they were last year. Even though they made the conference championship and they had their moments.
Yeah. And that's why I think we'll see the Commanders, but guess it depends how the schedule breaks down.
But they start out week one hosting the Giants at FedEx Field. Will sewage be leaking into the locker room and showers? Will they be hot? We don't know.
So when I picked the Giants game, I did pick the Giants to win this game. So I'll stick with that. I'll have the Giants winning in an upset in week one. High expectations. Week one, I think we'll take the Giants to upset them here.
All right. And then week two, on Thursday night football 9/11, I will be in Phoenix, Arizona for this game. We'll be watching this game probably in a plane together or on rowdy, whatever avenue you call it. But the Packers are hosting the Commanders in this one on 9/11.
Lambeau, 9-11, Packers, Commanders. It might not even be the Commanders at this point. This could be the Redskins again, like good old times. So I don't know. Jordan Love, prime time against Jaden Daniels, cinema.
This
I'm
is a
going to
great
take the
matchup.
This is a great matchup. I'm going to lean the Packers in this one, but this is obviously a coin toss. I think they start off maybe a little slow, so I will take the Packers to win this game.
Yeah, not that it means anything, but I'm kind of like leaning Packers as well. But it's okay. Their schedule gets a little bit easier. The next week they get to host the Raiders off of a mini bye.
And I will take them to beat the Raiders. At this point, starting off 0-2, no reason to press the panic button. They win, they beat the Raiders, and they move on to week 4.
All right, and then they get to go to the home of Killer Mike in Atlanta the following week.
Yes, and they have Michael Penix. Big season for Kyle Pitts ahead, according to fantasy owners. We shall see. But it will not be in week 4 because the Commanders will beat them, contain the beast that is Kyle Pitts, drafted ahead of Jamar Chase, by the way. And Commanders move to 2-2. Everything is good again.
Yeah, they moved to 2-2. Yeah, Kyle Pitts this year. He's getting unlocked, bro. Like every fantasy year, like actually, this is a year Kyle Pitts, and like I know it because Michael Penix said so. Oh, you got me.
Well, is he open or is he not? That's what it comes down to. And Kyle Pitts has been a bust so far. We've talked about it on the show. Maybe Michael Penix can make him better, but I'm not. If I'm a fantasy owner, I don't touch Kyle Pitts in any capacity. He's burned you too many
No,
times. Why would you do that to yourself?
the Najee Harris of tight ends, truly.
Exactly. No, literally.
And then speaking of Najee Harris, they go to LA to face the Chargers the next week.
Mm, I think head to head, this is going to be a great matchup. Ultimately, two um, great coaches as well. With how I feel about the Chargers and how I feel about the Commanders, I'm going to pick the Commanders to win this game. I think they're
Okay.
going to start to win a few games, but Chargers, this will be a fun game to watch.
Yeah, it is a fun matchup in that game. I like it. And then again, hide your boyfriends and your husbands because Caleb Williams is coming to Washington, and this looks like it's a Monday night football that they are playing in Washington.
Okay. Um, I believe in the Bears. I think they'll be better this year, but I do think that the Commanders are in a different class. I take the Commanders to win this game, and I think we see a Jaden Daniels super class in this one.
All right, so now they are 4-2, and they go to Jerry World to face off against the Cowboys.
And I think they'll ultimately split with the Cowboys. I know they face them later in the season. I will take the Cowboys to win this game. When you picked this game, did you pick the Cowboys to win this one?
I picked the Commanders to win this one, and then the Cowboys to win the second one.
Okay, so I'll stick with continuity then. I will pick in that order. So in this case, the Commanders win this game.
All right, so now they're 4-3, which is completely okay. And then another primetime game. They face the Kansas City Chiefs on Monday Night Football. Looks like
And they are red
in
hot at this
Arrowhead.
point. What's that? And they're at Arrowhead. I think I got to give respect to the Chiefs here. I mean, we have Mahomes, Andy Reid, Travis Kelsey, Arrowhead, Monday Night Football, prime time. I'll take the Chiefs in this one. But I think this is a game I think they can beat the Chiefs.
And then they have another primetime game. This is Sunday Night Football. They face the. Actually, no, this is Thursday Night Football. They host the Seahawks. Who thought this was a good idea to put on Thursday Night Football? A demolition.
Why would they do that? Yeah, they're going to annihilate the Seahawks. I don't believe in the Seahawks at all this year. If you watch our NFC West preview, you'll know that. But they destroy the Seahawks. And I don't know why this is a primetime game.
All right. And then speaking of revenge, a team that kind of gets in their feels when they lose to a team, they host the Lions the next week in a rematch of that playoff game that broke so many hearts in Detroit.
Yeah. And typically with these rematches, the team that loses historically wins. Detroit's going to have this circled on their calendar. I'm going to pick the Lions to win this game. But now I think we start to see them go on a roll.
Yeah. And then we don't have Ben Johnson cooking up grilled cheese for plays in this game either.
Yes, that
But
is also true.
thankfully, the next week they face the Miami Dolphins. Looks like overseas somewhere, London or Germany. One of
Madrid.
those. Madrid. Is that Spain? I
Yes,
sound
that's
stupid.
Spain.
Okay.
And yeah, at this point, I think the Dolphins are going to be extremely disappointing this year. Tua, will he even be alive after this game? We don't know. Will Mike McDaniel's be holding a cardboard box outside of Hard Rock Stadium? We don't know. All things we'll find out, I guess, as the season progresses. But they need to start winning games. They're going to start off when they beat the Dolphins.
Yeah, and they have opportunity to win games because you have a bye, and then you get to face Denver at home the next week off of a bye, and Denver with 2 weeks to prepare.
Yeah, and I think they beat the Broncos in this case. And this is a primetime game, which I think Jaden Daniels has proven so far early on that he is a primetime performer. He's been clutch, and in prime time, he's put on a show, so I will take him to beat Bo Nix.
All right, and then they go to Minnesota at 1 o'clock Eastern time.
And I think they beat the Vikings in this case.
All right, so now we're 8-5. You know, we went 5-5, but now we're 8-5, kind of on the track again. Then we get to go to East Rutherford to play Russ, Jameis, or Jackson Dart, or Tommy DeVito because they brought him back because three of the above got hurt or all suck.
Yes, maybe both. We don't know. But they beat them. If they're going to lose in week one, they are not going to get swept by the Giants. They beat them in week 15. They got playoff implications.
All right, so they beat the Giants and then they host Philadelphia. And they play
Host,
Philadelphia in the last 3 weeks, 2 out of the 3 weeks. So this could be very important for the division. I kind of like that the NFL did this.
I do too. I think yeah, they have the last 4 weeks is all their division. I would take them to beat the Eagles this time around, and then maybe week 18 that changes.
All right, so they beat the Eagles this time around. So now they're 10-5, and then they host the Cowboys.
Yes, Christmas game, Netflix game. Um, I will take them to beat the Cowboys in this case because I think I had the Cowboys beating them earlier in the season. So I will pick them.
Um, yeah, I had them winning and then the Cowboys beating them, so they would go to 11. They would go to 10-6, continuity
Okay.
wise.
Okay.
Um, but then they face Philadelphia probably for the division the following week in Philadelphia.
Okay. And I had them beating the Eagles. I think they're going to be 11-6 to 10-7. So in this game, I think it ultimately comes down to health. I'll pick the Commanders currently to win that game. I think they're going to be 11-6 ultimately.
11-6, and that's fine because the Eagles could definitely be banged up. And then saw last time they went to the Super Bowl, they really struggled at the end of the year, and there's definitely nothing wrong with that. But I definitely think 11-6 for the Commanders is a good record. Where they're a better team than they were last year, but is the record as good? No, it's like one game different. But I think 11-6 or 10-7 is definitely fair.
Yeah, 100%. I think they should be vying for the playoffs. Um, they'll be competing. The Cowboys will be breathing down their neck, and our next team, the Eagles, should be there as well. God forbid, hopefully injuries don't hit them, but typically when it comes to the Super Bowl, that typically does happen. But 10-7 seems fair for the Commanders.
All right, so we have
Um,
the
and then
so
we
far
go
the
to the defending champs. Oh, sorry.
no, go ahead.
Go ahead. The Philadelphia Eagles, defending champs. Typically, with any sort of Super Bowl, there's going to be one team that has a Super Bowl hangover. Um, and I think because the Chiefs are seasoned, they've been to multiple Super Bowls, they've experienced it. This could be the team that has a bit of a Super Bowl hangover, in my opinion. How do you see the Eagles faring out in this season?
Yeah, the Eagles won the division, and with the NFC East, no team has repeated it. So if I had to guess, I would think they would be a wild card team where maybe they struggle out of the gate and kind of pace Saquon Barkley, but I do still think they should be a dominant team next year. But I don't think they're going to be that same Super Bowl team heading into this year, and there could be some struggles out of the gate, especially with the new coordinator here. But you still have Saquon Barkley here, and if Saquon Barkley is healthy, you have a chance to get to the Super Bowl. But if he goes down, I really don't think you have much of a shot at all. And it will just depend too, like, are the players on defense like Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis also going to take another step forward this year like they're supposed to?
Yeah. So let's get into it. Week one, Thursday night football, Dallas Cowboys. In your Cowboys preview, you had them beating the Eagles. Are we sticking with that in this prediction?
Yeah, I'll stick with that in this one. I think like Super Bowl teams can struggle out of the gate. I think Dallas has a little bit to prove this year, kind of remind everyone. It's good marketing for the NFL. It's like, oh, look, the Cowboys won first week. Everyone can talk about them. So I will take the Cowboys to win week one.
All right. And then they go to Arrowhead to take on the Chiefs in a Super Bowl rematch.
Yeah, and the Chiefs can struggle out of the gates, and then Rasheed Rice could potentially, well, probably he's going to be suspended because he got convicted of murder and he's going to spend 30 days in jail because he hit someone while he was drunk driving. So I will go ahead and then take the Eagles to win this one.
Okay. And then they go and host the LA Rams in week 3.
Then they host the Rams in week 3, and the Rams can also struggle out of the gate a little bit. So I'll take Philadelphia in this one too.
All right. So they are now 2-1. They go in week 4 to end September. They go to Raymond James to take on Baker and the Bucks.
Yeah, and I will take the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in this one. I think the Bucks will be solid this year, and the Eagles will kind of be hit or miss. So give me Tampa Bay to win this one.
All right. Entering into October, it's week 5. They host the Denver Broncos.
They host the Denver Broncos, and this will be a really tough matchup. And I think this will be one of those games that the Broncos will start to really legitimize themselves. So give me the Broncos to win this one.
All right. Luckily for them, the next 3 weeks looks a little easier. Thursday night football, they are going to East Rutherford, New Jersey, unfortunately. And they will be taking on Jameis or Russell Wilson or Jackson Dart. Who knows at this point?
Why is this Thursday night football? I just don't understand. I mean, the commentators in this one, you have two legends, the legend of college football and a legend of the NFL, and Al Michaels and Kirk Herbstreit, and then you just give them these awful games. But the Eagles probably win in a landslide in this one.
I would agree, and that is a shame. I know Al Michaels has been very vocal over the last few years of some of the turd games that they have received. So please, NFL, flex some more games, please, for the love of God, including this one. Um, week 7, they go to Minnesota. They take on the Minnesota Vikings. JJ McCarthy, Justin Jefferson, all that.
Yeah, and I think they win this one.
All right. And then they the Giants come back to them in week 8 and they take on the Giants.
And I'll take Philadelphia to beat the Giants again. And now Philadelphia is sitting at 5-3. So not terrible coming out of the gate off their Super Bowl.
Not at all. They take a bye week. They rest up after annihilating the Giants once again. And then week 10, primetime game, they take on the Packers in Lambeau Field.
Yeah, and I'll take the Packers to win this one. I think Green Bay is going to be really good. They drafted a receiver this year, and they already have some pretty solid studs there, especially defensively. I think they'll also take a step forward. So give me Jordan. I believe in a thing called love to win this one, and they're 5-4.
And then they go back on primetime the following week as they go Sunday Night Football and host the Detroit Lions.
They host the Detroit Lions, and give me the Lions in this one. Like, the Lions have been really good in primetime so far. I don't think that Super Bowl hangover is coming. This is going to be a game that Dan Campbell's going to have his guys fired up for, and hopefully their entire defense for Detroit is not hurt by the time this game comes around. So give me the Lions to win this one. The Eagles fall to 5-5 so far,
All
but
right.
that's okay.
But that's okay. All is well. Sunday night, they go to Jerry World to take on the Cowboys.
And then I had the Cowboys or the
You
Eagles winning this one.
you had the Eagles winning because you had the Cowboys winning in week 1.
All right, so I will take Philadelphia in this one. They get back above 500, and now they're 6-5.
And then they have yet another primetime game. This is the Black Friday game, and they will be taking on the Bears in Philadelphia.
Yeah, and they're taking the Bears on in Philadelphia or Chicago.
In Philadelphia.
Okay, I'll Black Friday. I'll take the Bears in this one to win.
Okay. Then they have another primetime game. So in case you've missed it, they've had one, two, three, now four primetime games in the last 5 weeks. And then they get another primetime game, Monday Night Football in Los Angeles to take on the Chargers.
take on the Chargers in this one, and I will take Philadelphia to win this one because it's probably going to be a home game for them.
Philly fans travel, and there are not many Chargers fans, whether in LA or really just across the country, unfortunately. Um, Now they finally don't have any primetime games. Week 15, they host the Raiders.
They host the Raiders, and they should beat the Raiders, hopefully, depending on how Las Vegas does next year.
God willing. Week 16, to be determined, potentially a primetime game. They are going to Washington to take on the Commanders.
And then I believe you had the Commanders winning this one.
Yes.
All right, so that puts them at 8-7.
All right. And then they go to Buffalo December 28th, week 17, 4 o'clock slate, and they face the Bills and Josh Allen.
And I will take the Eagles to win this one because they're probably in more of a must-win scenario than the Bills are at this point.
Yeah, I would agree. And then week 18 is the flex game again with the Commanders, end the season with them. Um, I was pretty indeterminate on the Commanders if they win this game, but at this point, week 18 to finish it out.
Yeah, week 18 to finish it out, and I think they should split with the Commanders. I don't think either of these teams are going to sweep each other. So, just for parity's sake, that would have the Eagles and the Cowboys, or the Eagles and the Commanders both finishing at 10-7 with how we predicted it if the Eagles win that one.
Oh my God. So that's a potential um, tiebreaker, which I think at that point it comes to like strength of schedule, um, if I'm not mistaken, or it comes to division record at this
Division
point.
record.
Yeah, so they sweep the Giants. They split with the Cowboys and Commanders. I think in this case the Commanders win that division at that point because I had the Commanders. I might even go further than that because I had them splitting with the Cowboys and the Eagles, and then beating the Giants for both of them. So I don't know where it goes
Yeah.
from there. I
So
think it's
that would
strength of win at that point.
Yeah, that would either be it would be strength of schedule and then division, and then it would also be either the Commanders and the Eagles finishing both 10-7, or the Eagles and the Cowboys both finishing 9-8, and then they also split, and then that could be a potential for a wild card tiebreaker going
Hmm,
down. But
okay.
I think that's definitely going to be a divisional game, and typically the NFC East does come down to the last week. But I'll give a little bit of respect to the Eagles just with how they dominated the Commanders in that NFC Championship game. So I do think they should split with them, whether it's the first of the last 3 weeks or the last week of the season. I think like the Eagles should definitely win at least one of those, even though historically in the regular season the Commanders have given them trouble.
Yeah, I mean, I remember the Commanders were the ones that broke their 11-0 when they started off 11-0. And then last year, I know they've upset them. So, Commanders, no matter how good or bad they are, they always historically split with them and give them trouble, even in like the Sam Heineke era. So, I see it. Ultimately, it seems like it's going to be Commanders, Eagles, and Cowboys competing, and potentially all of them making the playoffs at this point.
Yeah, potentially. And it'll be in the NFC. If 9-8 is going to be good enough to get it done, it'll be tough because you're playing the NFC North next year. I think the Eagles should at least go 2-2 against the North, is how I had it. I think the Packers and the Lions should be able to handle business, but we had the Commanders and the Eagles both going 10-7, the Cowboys at 9-8, and then the Giants at 3-14. So this is a crazy division. It's going to be a crazy division next year. I think it's going to be really competitive. And then there's kind of, you have the Commanders situation right now where, let's be honest, their stadium sucks. I forget who the NFL player was. He was like a veteran guy who I respect, but he was like, they asked him who the worst fan bases in the NFL was, or one of the worst places to play, and he said Washington. He's like, the
Hmm.
showers are always cold. They had sewage leaking into the locker room. And now you have all of this drama with the Epstein files. So, what does the government do? Because they think they're in a TV show, they deflect. And now Trump, to deflect that, said, we're going to make them the Redskins again, and they're going to be the gay commanders if they're not. No stadium. So now, Donald Trump, what were your thoughts when you heard that he was holding up a stadium deal for the commanders unless they switch their name back to the Redskins?
I thought it was ridiculous, to say the least. For one thing, I don't see why this is a pressing concern when we have housing prices at an all-time high. We have people who are um, can barely afford groceries. We have all these other issues. We have a social divide. We have all these other things that we could work on: homelessness, drug epidemic, all these different things. And we're talking about what the name of a um, football team should be in Washington because they changed it to the Commanders, which honestly I hated the name at first, but now that it's been a year, I'm like, okay, that's fine. They're the Commanders now. It's stuck with me. Bringing them back to the Redskins just mean doesn't really mean that much to me. But the fact that it's holding up their stadium, which is the worst stadium in the league by far, is a little ridiculous and a little absurd, especially for all the other issues that they had. This is just kind of retarded, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, no, it's retarded, and it just felt like one of those things. Like, why don't you want to release the Epstein files? And then I feel like that's when like a lot of young voters had their first red pill moment, where it's like no matter who you vote for, nothing's gonna change. Like especially in that moment when he like freaked out about it, it's like Obama's committed treason, which maybe he did. I'm not informed enough to know. And then you have the Commander Stadium, and then he just seems like he's throwing stuff at the wall. And there's a funny thing that Dave Smith said, or his co-host said it. It's like it seems like the modern day government thinks they're in a TV show, and we're all dumb enough where like they'll just tweet out something like Dan Bongino tweeted out like, "What I just saw was the most disturbing thing, and it shook me to my core. How can you run a government like this? To be continued week 2." It's like these people think they're in a TV show where the NFL is actually a TV show. Like you have these people, like I feel like this is their first red pill moment for like a lot of young people. It's like, oh, I get what everyone was saying. It's like both sides are just like I get it now.
Yeah, I get it too, and I don't know for Trump, like I don't know, people seeing him as like the change that they voted for, and now it's like he's showing that, whether it's deals with the Saudi Arabia where he gets a free aircraft from it, or it's the Epstein files, or it's releasing Trump coin. And there's all these different stupid things that he could be prioritizing his time with housing prices. I mean, if you want to buy a house in Austin at this point, it's how much? Like $600,000 potentially. If
Yeah, the
it's in New
medium's
England,
like 500K for like a okay house.
yeah, housing prices have gone up like I think 200% since COVID, and the wages have not matched that whatsoever. We've had record inflation with no real wage increase at all. Um, and then there's drugs that are laced with fentanyl that are killing people. So the priority is to change the Commanders back to the Redskins. For why, I don't know. There is a base of people who want the Commanders to go back to the Redskins, mostly Native Americans, ironically enough. But is this an issue that has to be resolved by the president? Or is this something that could be resolved by, I don't know, the Commanders themselves or their fan base? Or better yet, just maybe just the NFL? I feel like maybe the NFL can figure this out, not the president.
Yeah, literally. And that's why we like don't talk about politics on the show.
So
It's
I
like
find it to be
cuz
a bit ridiculous.
yeah, it's like why we don't talk about politics is like even if you
But
do, it feels like it doesn't matter. And then like too like if you factored in like inflation like with minimum wage like what it should be, it would be like something like $180 versus like what it was in like the 1900s when it was like $1.84. But no, it's still 725.
yeah, which is insane. And I get that minimum wage isn't supposed to be like it's supposed to just be the floor of like the wages. But if you can't afford to have a house on minimum wage or pay rent, then it's not minimum wage. It's not what minimum wage is meant to be. It's supposed to be the floor. And then those are, the fact that it's as low, it hasn't been increased since like the 80s is a bit insane, to be honest, because even just like over the last decade, it's, I used to survive on working a part-time job and paying my bills efficiently. And now it's like I make more than most people, I would say, and it's tight. Like money's just tight for everybody. Everything's more expensive.
Yeah, no, I feel like too, like for my demographic, I definitely like make more than most people, but like, yeah, it's still expensive. You have to have roommates here now. But let's focus on the Commanders and to be determined on what shook them to their core, or we just have all these investigations thrown out. Will anything come of it? We don't know, but Pedro Pascal throws himself into a lot of movies, and this year so far, he's starred in 9 movies, and he's kind of become the new face of Hollywood. Some people like it, some people don't, where they're pointing out past videos of him being kind of handsy with some of the people, you know. But what are your thoughts overall just on Pedro Pascal being in 9 movies when we've had people like Daniel Day Lewis? He would like talk to like Leonardo DiCaprio, some other actors. Like you kind of have to be careful on how many faces you wear when you're actors and how fast you do it because you only have so many faces before it comes repetitive. You have that, and then you also have the rock mantra where it's like, let me play myself in every movie and then be the highest paid actor.
Yeah, I definitely think there's a certain chord you can strike, right? For Pedro Pascal, he's like the hottest face in Hollywood. He, whether it was The Mandalorian or it was the Game of Thrones that propelled him to superstardom, there's a balance between capitalizing on that and making as much money as you can. And then also, I think if there's too much saturation with you, ultimately Hollywood gets tired of you and the public gets tired of you. I think we saw that recently with Chris Evans when he was like Mario. He
Chris
was
Pratt,
in,
yeah.
yeah, Chris
Jurassic
Pratt.
World,
Yeah, he was just in everything.
Garfield.
Yeah, he was Garfield. He was Mario, and then I think he was also in Guardians of the Galaxy and a million
Mhm.
other movies. So saturation with him, I think, has tainted his brand a little bit. But I think historically, I think people appreciate those who, rather than coming out with a bunch of movies each year, focus on this is my movie. It comes out every 3 or 4 years. The Leonardo DiCaprios, the Daniel Day Lewis's of the world. For directors, it's the Stanley Kubricks, it's the Quentin Tarantinos. Those that they don't come out often, but when they do, they come out with a masterpiece. For Tarantino, it's pretty much his entire filmography is all classics. Same with Kubrick. And then there's directors like, not to discredit um, Steven Spielberg, but I feel like he started off with the ETs of the world and he came out with Jurassic Park and he's had all these accomplishments. And then he kind of banked on it, made a lot of different movies, Adventures of Tintin, um, Howard the Duck, a lot of different movies that ended up coming out. He ended up releasing like 2 or 3 a year rather than coming out with
Spielberg
them.
did
Never
Howard
releasing.
the Duck.
I'm pretty sure. I'll double check, but
That movie's
yeah,
scary. We were like at a random brewery and Howard the Duck was on, and Howard the Duck is kind of, as you say, something that nightmares are made of. Like we are watching that movie, and then he makes out with the girl at the end of the movie too. Like, what is going on?
yeah. I haven't seen it, but it's one of those movies that's so bad it's good. If you even would say that.
It's terrifying.
Yeah, it's a nightmare. But I think, yeah, Pedro Pascal, I don't blame him for chasing the bag, but what I fear, you're going to be the face of Marvel, so you're going to be in a bunch of different movies in the next 5 years. You're also The Mandalorian. I don't know whether they're continuing that or not. And then he's been in, God only, how many movies has he been in the last like year or so? I think he said
Movies
nine in
and
the
TV
last year.
shows this year, he's been in 9. If you like count The Last of Us and
Yeah. So, I mean, and all of these have been successful, but what's going to happen, I fear, is that he could be like Brandon Fraser. Brandon Fraser, for those who don't know, like early 2000s, he was in The Mummy. He was in Journey to the Center of the Earth. He was in um, George of the Jungle. These are all movies that were successful. But what happened is that people kept offering him roles, And then you saw him make movies like The Big Bugman, and he was in some of the sequels of The Mummy that were really bad. And then he was in G.I. Joe, which was a mess. And then eventually he just kept making bad movies and he fizzled out of Hollywood and nobody gave a fuck about him for 20 years. And it wasn't until he came out with The Whale, which people liked, that he had his resurrection. But the fear is that if he saturates himself too much, people will get sick of him. And ultimately, people will stop casting him, which I hope that doesn't happen because I'm a big Pedro Pascal fan, but that's what I fear.
Yeah, and he's like one of those people who I like, but like when when I saw he was going to be in Fantastic Four as Mr. Fantastic, it wasn't just because I was hoping it was going to be John Krasinski. I was just kind of tired of seeing Pedro Pascal in everything because it seems like everywhere I would turn, it's The Last of Us. He was in The Mandalorian, and then he's been in 9 movies and TV shows this year. So I've just been, he's one of those actors where I see him in a movie, I'm like, oh, again, like, I'm getting a little fatigued of seeing him, and it's not because he's a bad actor, it's just because Hollywood nowadays has a few actors, and now they just try and cast them in everything, and he's made over $30 million doing it, so he's definitely got the bag. He has his, Corona commercials as well. He's been in some really funny movies, and overall, like, generally the movies he puts out are good, but I don't want to see the same actor in every single movie. And I feel like that's just been a problem that Hollywood has had over the past couple decades is just overcasting people. It's like, all right, I think Fantastic Four looks cool. I've heard some good things about it, but does it get me really excited that the guy who's going to be the face of Marvel that already releases a bajillion movies and TV shows a year is also going to be the face of Marvel in a bunch of movies? On top of that, he's also going to star in 10 other movies and TV shows. Like, at some point, it's just a little bit too much. And I think, like, if you're going to be in a ton of movies, 4 to 5, but once we're at 10,
Yeah. And not only another thing with Pedro Pascal is not only is he going to be in Marvel, he's also going to be in Star Wars as well. They're making
what?
a Mandalorian and Grogu movie that's coming out next year, I think. So there's going to be a Mandalorian movie. I think they have another season of The Mandalorian as well. So he's going to be a part of two franchises that are very much releasing movies every year. So, and of course under the Disney umbrella. So I'm looking at his upcoming catalog. He's in the Avengers: Secret Wars. He's going to be in Doomsday. He's going to be in another season of The Mandalorian, and then the movie that's coming out with The Mandalorian and Grogu. So two massive entities. Plus, he's also in like The Last of Us, which I'm sure they're going to make another season of. They have Eddington. He's in all these other things. He's on SNL. He's got commercials, and I respect it. Like, good for him. But at the same time, I think there will be fatigue that come from it.
Yeah, for sure. And it makes sense that he's going to be the face of Marvel, especially with Doctor Doom being like the next big villain. He's played by Robert Downey Jr. And, Doctor Doom has primarily been a villain of the Fantastic Four. So that definitely makes sense why Mr. Fantastic is kind of going to take that Robert Downey Jr. Iron Man role, where they're very similar characters when you boil it down. Definitely different, but very similar. So that makes sense overall, but I think it can be a little much. Um, for all of the people out there complaining, because there's some videos of him that surfaced with him. I don't know if you saw this at all, but some people are like, Pedro Pascal uses his anxiety as an excuse to touch women in public. Like, well, if they're fine with it, no one's come out against him or dropped a lawsuit, then, keep doing your thing, man.
Yeah, I did see some of that. Ultimately, I mean, if there's cases that come out about it, then that's different. But if it's consent, then that's just what it is. It is what it is. With that piece of it,
Yeah, it just comes
but
off as jealous, like, oh, he's gay. Like, okay, sure. Like, that seems, could he be gay? Like, would I be surprised? No. Could he be bi? Like, that wouldn't surprise, but like, would it change how I view him as an actor? at all? No. Why would it?
Yeah. I think ultimately with Pedro Pascal, it comes down to quality over quantity. Um, if he's going to keep releasing movies at this high of a rate and it's still good content, then great. Like I think a good example would be like we talk about like in pop culture, right? We compared Tarantino and Kubrick to like some of these directors that just pump out movies every year. In music, like Drake is one of those guys who for a long time was releasing music that was consumable and everyone really liked. And then it got to a point where every year he was releasing music to lesser quality and people started to turn on Drake as you saw last year compared to someone like Kendrick, who obviously they got that rap beef against each other. But Kendrick's a guy who releases an album and disappears for 4 years and then comes back out. Each album he released had something to bring to the table and was typically a classic when it dropped, whether it was Good Kid or To Pimp a Butterfly or Damn or Mr. Morale. Every time he released an album, it was a classic. So it's the classic argument of quality over quantity in this case with Pedro Pascal.
Yeah, and I feel like I feel like quality over quantity is definitely rewatchable. If the quote unquote quality misses though, that can be a problem where if you take a 3 year, 5 year break in some artists, whether it's a music artist or a director's case, and it misses, then that's generally a miss. But like, has Tarantino missed? No. Has
No.
Kendrick missed? No. Even if people don't like him or it's not your forte, like I feel like he has a stylistic type of sound for everyone since he takes his time to do something different. And when you're just releasing the same thing year in and year out, and it's the same sound, or it's ooh, let me make a bunch of dance beats that are all terrible and then put that out, you know?
Yeah, yeah. I think with Mr. Morale with Kendrick Lamar, um, people kind of weren't as big as fan to it if you're comparing it to his past classics. But at least he was doing operatic music. Damn was a pop album. To Pimp a Butterfly was a jazz record, and Good Kid, Mad City was a classic hip hop record, bringing something new to the table. If we're looking at like Drake, he'll try new sounds, but it's all sounds that still kind of fall into the same cadence of the stuff he's made in the past. So it doesn't feel as fresh. And I think that with quantity, if you're releasing a bunch of albums and they all have a similar sound to it, it just becomes kind of monotonous at that point.
Yeah, or it's let me release a sound every year and then try and mimic whatever the popular sound is because he's been known for just ripping people off straight up. Like whether it's their flow or sounds, Juice World.
Yeah, I think he tries to pay homage to them, but it does definitely come off as stealing from them in that case because it is kind of it's a fine line when it comes to if you're going to pay homage to somebody, you want to bring something fresh to the table, and with Drake, it doesn't always do that.
Yeah, but I do think there is something to like Tarantino versus Spielberg, where sure Spielberg has a lot of quantity, but the more you release bad movies, when Tarantino releases a new movie, and it's relevant and everyone likes it and it's really good, then that kind of builds upon his legacy where feels like Spielberg, even Scorsese to a lesser degree has kind of seemed like he's run out of ideas and you only have a certain amount of stories to tell, as Tarantino would say. You only have a certain amount of faces to wear, as someone like Daniel Day Lewis. And like when Daniel Day Lewis shows up in a movie and Daniel Day Lewis is in a movie and he's playing someone like Lincoln, I think we watched There Will Be Blood together. Like a character like that, he absolutely loses himself in it. And it's like I can't recognize him in a movie. I don't even know like generally what Daniel Day Lewis looks like or who he is. And then Denzel Washington also told Michael B. Jordan to like get off social media because if people see you every day, then there's no reason for them to go see you in theater because they get to
Mm.
see you. They can open up X, open up Instagram, Facebook, whatever you're on, MySpace, if you're still there, and say, "Oh, I see Michael B. Jordan there." And it doesn't have as much of an impact where you're like, "I don't see the celebrity that often." They just released a movie, everyone's talking about it. It's incredible where they're not in your face every single day. So I think that was an interesting take from Denzel too.
Yeah, I think that's a good, especially in today's time. I also think the more that you're exposed online in whatever you're doing, you're more likely to be hated as well. Because even if you're just posting like, your coffee for the morning, or you're posting like just your opinion on a movie, people are going to come at you no matter what. And especially if you're in that high of a position, the less you show your face, the less people can gather their opinions of you, unless if it's in your movies that you end up watching. To carry on the Spielberg take, you mentioned like how Tarantino has such a limited catalog, so you can really sit and appreciate the art with it as well. I think with Spielberg, if we're comparing the two, he's had such a great. If you look at all the movies he's made some classics like whether it's Jaws or Indiana Jones or E.T. He's made like The Color Purple. He's made Jurassic Park, Schindler's List. The list goes on, but the issue is that I think that when you start releasing some clunkers in there as well, like for example, like he has like
The
um
BFG.
yeah, I was gonna say the BFG was kind of a clunker, and then the Post wasn't very successful either. The Timeless Call, like there's movies that end up tainting your catalog with that. I think you can kind of say that with Kanye in the last decade as well, because his catalog up until 2016 was flawless, and then with Vultures 2, Vultures, it's kind of tainted his catalog, even though all of the works before that are still some of the best hip hop records of all time.
Yeah, Eminem too. Like
Another great
even
example.
like before like Rehab, Eminem, it's not for everyone, but like everyone loved him. But like Rehab is good, but it definitely feels like a much different tone. But like he still has good songs. It's still there's still some quality stuff there. But is it front to back just an all time classic? No. And probably the best album he's released since he got sober was probably Kamikaze, in my opinion. Like that's the most entertainment I get from Eminem, like post relapse and post recovery. That's the most fun I can have, like listening to his albums compared to all the new stuff he's released. So it's like you can like kind of get that. Like, why does everyone love Tupac? It's because he didn't have a chance to release a bad album.
Yeah, and the same goes with like Nirvana, Biggie. They didn't really have a chance to. They didn't have enough of a time. They didn't have enough time to make a bad album. So because of that, we're left with just a limited amount. Lauryn Hill is another example. Stopped making music after she made the Fugees album and then Miseducation. So like, there's not enough. We don't have enough to. You're left wanting more with that because of it, and that's kind of what Tarantino's take is on it too. Like, you want them wanting more, and if you keep giving them more, then they're ultimately going to be quenched from that and they're going to move on from it. So,
Yeah.
interesting take there.
Green Day post 21st Century Heartbreak. Same with Blink 182. How many albums can you release the same sound where it's just the same three power chords over and over again?
Yeah. So, I don't know. It's an interesting conversation. I'm interested to know what the fans think as far as like Pedro Pascal, quality over quantity, what their stance is on it. But definitely a good thing to explore and discuss on it when it comes to that.
For sure.
But before we end the show, our segment, what we've been watching, anything that you want to shout out that you've watched or listened to, consumed over the last week to shout out.
Yeah, this Saturday I ended up binging The Hunting Wives. It was kind of a unexpected show, but it's a new show on Netflix that came out and it's based off a novel. Um and I'm going to be honest, this show is probably not good, but it's definitely a guilty pleasure show, whether it's the raunchy sex in the show, nudity or murder. But The Hunting Wives, essentially this girl is from Boston and then she moves to Texas, and like all people who have never been to Texas, like I just don't think that they'll get me. And then she ends up going there, and then she befriends this one lady who is married to a guy who's trying to run for governor, so he has big money there. And then a girl in the town ends up dying, and it ends up being with her gun. So essentially, it's a murder mystery. The second half of the season, or the first season, you kind of see this girl from Boston go through, make some friends with these Texas wives. But it's a show supposed to be based in East Texas, but it's kind of just a guilty pleasure movie. It's like we're gonna have a lot of nudity, we're gonna have a lot of sex, and we're gonna have a lot of graphic emotional scenes, whether it's the suicide that happened in the show, whether it's some of the murder. Like it can be like grotesque and over the top, but I kind of respect that the show just goes for it. Like it didn't seem like they tried to censor it, didn't seem like they tried to tone it down. Does it have some sentiments of alt right MAGA bad? But like that's fine. Like you can make it cartoonish. So I think it was overall just a fun show. It's only 8 episodes. They're all about an hour long, but you can definitely watch the show over the course of a weekend, over a week, and it's a good like couple show to watch. It's not a show where I would generally watch it on my own, but it was a show we ended up watching in a day. We ended up going to get some Korean barbecue, then came back and ended up finishing it that night. But overall, like watched it in a day, so there has to be something there, and it's definitely a guilty pleasure.
Is it like a reality TV show, or is it like more of like a drama type show?
Yeah, it's definitely a drama show. It's not a reality TV show, but it kind of feels like Real Housewives with murder, but kind of you
Hmm.
go for it and then you kind of put all the cards on the table. Like people start getting murdered left and right at the end of the show. And then it gets pretty graphic at sometimes, but it kind of has like a Real Housewives vibe, but like with a really dark sense of humor. And then there's
Hmm.
also some like kind of PDF file ish stuff, but not quite. Some cougar stuff going on in the show, which I liked.
Hmm. Okay. Interesting. I think it's also, I mean, with you guys both moving from the East Coast to Texas, there's got to be some sort of like connection there too. Like you guys could probably relate to it a little bit. Maybe not the murdering and pedophile stuff, but having that move and having some similarities there. Do you notice like any similarities with like your situation with that, or is it a little different there?
I mean, I noticed similarities with like her moving to Texas. She's like, "Oh, the Texas people just won't get me with how like people from the East Coast view Texas because everyone thinks it's this cowboy desert with no trees at all." But
Yeah.
I can get the vibe where it's like you kind of have this kind of liberal girl moving there, and then she's like kind of shell shocked because the first like event that they go to is like a NRA rally, which her like husband's boss is hosting, which is like generally like what people think of Texas, but like that is kind of relatable. But like I had visited before, so like
Yeah. No, it's funny because when I ran into your brother when I was in New Hampshire, I told him about my experience with Austin, and I'm sure you've told him too. But he's like, "Yeah, he's in Texas country, so he like I think you're like people think of Texas as like gung ho, and I feel like there's definitely areas of Texas that are like that. I think Dallas is more like that, and Fort Worth especially is more like that than like Austin is like its own. It's Austin is like a it's in like its own kind of bubble of Texas where it's its own city. It's functioning as its own. There's beer gardens and there's um I feel like there's a lot of liberals in Austin too. So it's like it's not really doesn't have that gung ho mentality that I think a lot of people think of when they think of Texas.
you know, per capita, like more people in Austin voted for Kamala Harris than California, but also too like people have this like weird idea of like some parts of Texas, but when you actually talk to these people in person, you're just not reading between the lines with what your friends are saying on the internet with or what your hipster friends are telling you. It's like most people here are genuinely nice and like genuinely want to help and genuinely want to have a conversation and take an interest in what you're talking about. So it's like I haven't really had a bad experience with anyone like in Texas. Like everyone here is really nice.
Yeah, I think the Texas hospitality is a great thing. I'm excited to be back there and check it out. Um, so it's good stuff there. As far as what I've been listening to, ultimately, unfortunately, I got the sad news this week that my cat of 18 years is going to pass on to the next life later this week. So, the album that I've been exploring is actually one of the more earlier concept albums. It's a Frank Sinatra album called "In the Wee Small Hours." For those who maybe don't know, like Frank Sinatra's history, he was more of like the Rat Pack, cool, swaggery, jazz musicians, crooner, before this album came out. And then what happened was, I believe him and Marilyn Monroe got divorced, or him, Ava Gardner, one of the people from the 50s. I don't know. It's way too before my time. Got divorced, and from that, he took that heartbreak and he made this album. The reason why it kind of hits a chord with me is because the album is kind of, it's a bit somber. It's definitely like some of the themes of the album that you can feel, but also like a lot of the songs are about letting go, and also um like one of the songs is Glad to Be Unhappy. It's talking about how he feels like shit and he's sad and he feels the heartbreak, but it's not a bad thing because the reason that he feels that way is because he loved it to begin with, which is a better feeling than to not. So for the, the somber emotions that I may feel about losing Angel, who I know that you get to spend time with, I think this is an album that, if you experience any sort of heartbreak, something that you can kind of put on in the background while you're making breakfast and whatever, and appreciate it, because it's kind of, it's just, it's definitely a little somber, but it is also just like a smooth, easy listen. So that's just an album I would shout out. Also, the fact that it's one of the first concept albums, for someone who appreciates like Pink Floyd and Kendrick Lamar and um, just albums in general that have a general theme behind it. I think if you appreciate concept albums, I think you would appreciate this one, even if it's not necessarily your styling, just for the
Mm.
sake that you can listen to it front to back and have a common theme behind it. Typically, with those kind of albums, those are ones that I appreciate a little bit more.
Yeah, and I haven't dove too much into Frank Sinatra, but I will definitely check that album out. I'm about to be on a 2 week road trip, so I'm definitely gonna check out some new music and podcasts there. So definitely add that to the list. And does it? I don't know, like when like Johnny Cash and like Frank Sinatra were out at the same time, but does it kind of have like the same, maybe not like musically the same sound, but same tone as like what Johnny Cash was releasing towards the end of his career when he was releasing the black tapes?
Yeah, I would say Johnny Cash's black tapes are much more
No hope.
dark, but Johnny, I think similar in the sense that they're somber, and they're definitely a little bit heavier. This is ranked as one of the top like 500 albums to listen to before you die. But both, yeah, both of them definitely a little depressing. But at the same time, this one I think you'll have higher spirits with than if you listen to like American Tapes 4, when it has like Hurt and like I See a Darkness and all these other songs that are off of those albums. Those are definitely, yeah, you should fucking go outside and smile at that point. Those albums can be really depressing, but definitely a nice, enjoyable listen, I would say.
Yeah, I'll definitely check that out. I know like Frank Sinatra like has released a lot of hits. And is it true that FBI had their own file on him because his ties to like the mob and mafia were so prominent when he
Yeah,
was an artist?
yeah, he had an FBI file. I know that one of the things is when he was trying to sign um to the record label, they said, "Here's a gun and here's a pen. You can either sign the papers or your blood will be on the papers." So that's kind of how his ties were there, and he was close with a lot of those higher up mobsters. So that's what I also think kind of makes Frank Sinatra cool. Is like when you think about like cool, snazzy, like 50s artists, he's like the epitome of like just cool Rat Pack guy. Him, Tony Bennett. I think he's probably the coolest of them all. He just has like a certain swagger with his voice that I think is um, that not a lot of artists have.
Yeah, it's the guy that's like hot to be a lady.
Exactly. Yeah. Something you'd probably hear at like your grandmother's wedding, but I appreciate listening to music from all different generations, because I think you can kind of like for a second kind of put yourself in that generation and understand it a little more and try to get some meaning from it. So that's why
Yeah.
I listen to Frank Sinatra, I listen to like you
We
know
listen to Roy Rogers together. I like kind of like the old music. I kind of like the simplicity of it, where the instrumentals don't have to be super complicated, but kind of just the messaging and the meaning. It's kind of just painting a picture of something where it's like something like, um, New York by Frank Sinatra or Home on the Range when Roy Rogers and the Sons of the Pioneer are singing it. Stampede kind of puts you in a moment like of time.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think like the Fleetwoods are another example. Like, there's something more like the '50s. When I think of the '50s, I think about like the people would consider like the golden age of America, prosperity. But I also feel like it's like a part of innocence as well. And like I listen to like Frank Sinatra, I listen to the Fleetwoods, and or like Cordettes, and it feels like it's like a more simple, more innocent time, one that's not with all the worries that we have today. They obviously had their issues too, but I think that this is just like it's considered like an easy the genre they classify it under is easy listening, and I feel like it's just calming in my opinion.
Yeah, it's like calming too, and it's interesting. I saw too, like Yellow Wolf was on Drink Champs, and he was talking about like that da 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 style of like rap today kind of comes from old bluegrass music. That was kind of
Mm.
the first like speedy first, and he's someone who's definitely a student of music, so it's kind of interesting hearing him talk about that, like where all the different like parts of music that influenced him and hip hop like kind of came together, and then you have the old like I don't want to say hokey, but kind of like wholesome, like a dum dum da dum da da
The
dum
OG
dum.
rap,
Yeah,
'80s rap.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, the Grandmaster Flashes of the world. It's crazy to think like that wasn't that long ago. That was like 40 years ago, 45 now. And what it's progressed to since then, like what we have, modern day, but also even over the course of like 15 years, it went from a to like Tupac, Big L, Biggie, Turf Wars, Murder, like the way that it progressed so quick. And I think, NWA was a big influence, Public Enemy, but just the way it evolved over time.
yeah. Then you had like groups like Wu Tang Clan, 3 6 Mafia, definitely influenced it here. But yeah, definitely shout out to that. I'll check out that Frank Sinatra album, but definitely tough to hear, about your cat because that's your childhood cat. That's like, and the unique thing was it Angel was your sister's cat, but she ended up choosing you, which is always special when
Hmm.
that happens. And in cat years, if she's 18, she would be somewhere between 88 and 91 at this
Yes.
point. So like she lived a long life. And I remember coming home, like we walked home and it was like 2:30 in the morning. And then I wake up at like 4 in the morning and I just hear
Yeah.
I was like,
She was a cat that
what was
always
that?
let you know when she was hungry because she was a vocal fucker. Um, my first memories of her were we got her like right around Halloween 2007, and it was the first game of the World Series, and I was ecstatic. I started watching baseball in 2007, like opening day. That was my first full season of baseball. And it was the World Series, the very first inning. Dustin Pedroia hits a leadoff home run, and I fucking shout at the top of my lungs because I'm fucking ecstatic. And this little cat that's just sitting next to me just leaps, just jumps in fear off the couch and onto the floor, and just fucking scatters away. She's like, "Who the fuck is this guy?" And then the fact that I had her for elementary school, middle school, high school, college,
Pissed off when you
Boston
came
era.
home from college.
Yeah, I had Boston era too. And then, she got to see my first apartment with, you and I. And then the fact that she was able to, after all of that, to then come to Arizona with me for my first year, as I almost am done my first year here. That's like I don't know how I don't think I could have been any luckier. So it's bittersweet, but just like if you listen to any song off the album, listen to Glad to Be Unhappy, it kind of it says like, it's a sad moment, but it's also happy that it happened. So that's kind of how I feel about it. It's unfortunate, but it's happy that we got to experience it together ultimately.
Yeah. And then you should tell the story of when she I would say laid a present on you in the middle of the night.
Oh yeah. Yeah, so Angel, we had back in my childhood home, we had mice that would go into the house from time to time, and I heard this noise come from my room just one random night, just a little like chirping. I'm like, okay, this is weird. I hear Angel fighting over something. I'm like, what the fuck is this cat? It's like 3 a.m. It's like I'm probably in high school at the time, and Angel's scattering with something, and then all of a sudden, it stops and there's silence. And I see her come up on the bed, which isn't uncommon because, she does that. But I hear the mice squeak, and then I hear silence, and then Angel comes up on the bed. I notice that she had the mouse in her mouth, and she's coming towards me. She drops the mouse on my chest, and I'm like, Angel, no, 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 don't go on the bed, don't go on the bed. I don't know, please, I don't need this mouse. She's like, no, I got you, homie. I'm gonna bring you this mouse. So she climbs up on the bed, drops it on my chest. The mouse immediately fucking, skirts out of the room, never to be seen again. And I'm like, Angel, don't ever send me this fucking mouse again. And yeah, so she found more mice. Some other times she would like put it next to my shoe, which I didn't love that either. But just fucking dropping a mouse on my chest at 3 a.m. was definitely not my favorite memory.
Yeah, not your favorite memory, but also a good memory, which kind of lays out who Angel was. She was a thoughtful cat, but sometimes not in the best way possible, but we love her for it.
We love her for it, and she'll be honored for sure. Maybe I'll name my fantasy team after her this year. We'll see. Hopefully, this gives me good luck. But we say goodbye to a but also to a new beginning. So exciting. But that is what I've been listening to. That is what you've been watching. We previewed the NFC East. We also gave our best possible roster for the NFC East and covered the latest headlines as well. Make sure to follow us on all streaming platforms, as well as we'll be posting content everywhere there. Message of all before we conclude the show. As always, stay brick.
Stay brick.